What's the matter? Not drinking? Has your stupid, unrefined taste never experienced real food, so you can't appreciate the taste of alcohol? If you can't understand this, you're no better than a dog. You know that.
My boss poured beer all over my head and forced me into a humiliating prostrated position. The insanity of it all was about to drive me mad. I had worked for this company with the belief that I wanted to support people in trouble, but it turned out there was a devil among us. My name is Robert Parker. I grew up in a children's home until I was 18. My mother passed away in an accident when I was just 3 years old. I found out when I became an adult that my father, who had abandoned my mother who was pregnant with me at 20, had already married another woman and had a child before I was born. To my father, I was just an obstacle to his new life, so he discarded me. After the accident that took my mother, I had no place to go but to the orphanage. I don't know about other places, but I think the environment was good there. The caregivers were nothing like my deadbeat biological father. They often played with us. Especially Jake Smith and his wife, Catherine, would go out of their way to prepare colorful, delicious homemade meals for us. Catherine, being an orphan herself, didn't want us kids to experience the loneliness she did, so she put a lot of effort into her cooking. Delicious omelets accompanied by crispy shrimp, adorned with playful tiny flags, or the fresh vegetables we prepared together right out of the farmer's market. I loved the times when we would all sit around and discuss school and friends over such meals. One time, Jake brought a gaming console for all the kids in the facility, and we played it late into the night until Catherine told us off, saying enough, go to bed now. Such fun memories. Considering my background, I believe I was very well educated. All thanks to the love and care of the Smith couple. Catherine must have had a pretty tough time in the past, because she still has a quote that stays with her to this day.
Even if people ridicule you for being an orphan, it doesn't determine your worth. Those who belittle others like that are the ones with impoverished hearts. As long as you have compassion, any life you lead is a good one.
Thanks to her, I grew up without any significant hardships or rebellious phases. The only concern was that I had to leave the children's home by the age of 18. Most kids went on to work, but I loved studying and wanted to go to college. As my 18th birthday approached, I became more reticent, which greatly worried Jake and Catherine. They wanted me to stay happy in the short time we had left together. The two faces staring at me looked worried. I didn't want to worry them either. Eventually, I opened up about my wish to attend college. But I'm already grateful for how you've raised me without any hardships, considering I was an abandoned child. I just wanted to share my feelings. I'll definitely work after turning 18, like my elder brothers here. Both of you, thank you. With that said, we had our usual joyful dinner that evening. Later, they shared astonishing news with me. There was a benefactor named Long Legs. He wanted to support my college education. The condition is that I report my college grades through the Smith couple. Not to inquire about the true identity of Long Legs. I eagerly agreed. I studied intensely during the last phase of my high school years and managed to get enough SAT score to enter the university of my wish. Jake and Catherine were overjoyed at my achievement. They took me to an upscale French restaurant, keeping it a secret from the others at the facility. I had never known that every dishes could be so beautifully created and taste so delicate. It was an elegant world, unlike anything I had experienced before. While I cherished the meals we had, the joy and emotions of that day with them were unforgettable. As a college student, I stayed at Jake and Catherine's residence and commuted to college. The couple had no children of their own, so they cared for me as if I were their own son. During this time, I started referring to them as Dad and Mom. At some point after moving in, I discovered a massive burn scar on my adoptive mother's back. It was a severe burnt scar covering half of her back. She cheerfully told me, a long time ago, our house caught fire. My biological mother had also passed away in a traffic accident. I wondered if medical advances could have healed that scar or saved my birth mother. Thinking about this made me want to work for a medical equipment company. I studied rigorously during my 4 years at college and graduated as honored student. As a result, I landed a job at my wish of a company who produces cutting-edge medical equipment, offering new treatments. My in-laws were overjoyed, with tears in their eyes. Therefore, the job was very much challenging. On one hand, I had to memorize a mountain of technical terms, and on the other, I had to deal with field work and support actual products. I was incredibly busy, but the job was rewarding. Thanks to the new products, I occasionally received gratitude from doctors and patients. It felt great. I wanted to support many more people with the new medical advancements, which unfortunately didn't come in time for my birth mother or adoptive mother. My adoptive parents would sometimes watch over me, their faces glowing with pride, as I worked with this mission in mind. Maybe I should start by giving back to them. Oh, when I get my bonus, I'll take them to that memorable French restaurant they once took me to. I can't wait. About 6 months passed, and my mentor-like boss, who guided me strictly yet kindly, was promoted to the headquarters. In his place, a new boss, Kyle, joined. Apparently, he was a rising star, freshly back from an overseas trip. I was looking forward to hearing his stories, but he turned out to be quite the character. Kyle went out of his way to dig up our resumes and never missed an opportunity to make sarcastic comments. He always spoke as if everyone else was inferior to him. The office atmosphere soured just by his presence, especially towards me.
How did a poor kid from an orphanage like you even manage to go to college? Did you scam your way through? I can't believe someone like you is handling our products. You're devaluing the company. You should just quit. You should prioritize fixing your rotten personality, which seems more focused on salary than actual patient care. I'm talking about you.
His comments were particularly harsh. I missed my previous boss, but I didn't want to think about switching jobs, especially when I had just landed one that could help others. After all, it was my adoptive father who had suggested this company out of the many medical manufacturers. Remembering my adoptive mother's teachings, I thought, what a pathetic guy who can't live without belittling others, and calmed my anger towards Kyle. One day, while enduring Kyle's torment, I finally received my first bonus. Kyle was teasing again, saying no money, no honey, Robert. Is he finding that funny? Kyle was annoying to other competent colleagues as well, but his interactions with me, the youngest in the department, were especially bothersome. Today, even though I never asked, he just keeps going on and on about going to dinner with his prized fiancée. Seems like she's the young and beautiful daughter of a well-known company.
You're so young, yet you don't have a single girlfriend. Poor thing. Look at me, on the fast track with the CEO's daughter as my fiancée. But then again, it might be impossible for someone like you.
Seemingly satisfied, Robert finally left the office. I need to shake off this feeling by 6 p.m. I had an important plan for the day. After all, it was the day I'd invited my adoptive parents to that special tempura restaurant. At 5:45 p.m., I straightened my suit, which my adoptive parents had bought for me, and opened the door to the restaurant. I'm Robert. I had a reservation. As I entered, a man and a woman were chatting cheerfully.
Kyle is so capable at work and so kind to me. He's truly wonderful. But that Robert, I wonder how long he plans to stick around in our company.
I think so too, Lily. We don't need poor people in a company where only elites gather.
To my surprise, it was Kyle and his fiancée. Why are they here? I was so shocked that I froze in place. When Kyle noticed me, our eyes met. This could turn into quite a situation.
Robert, what are you doing here?
I couldn't let this ruin the special occasion. I responded calmly. Today, I wanted to treat my parents with my first bonus, so I reserved this place. It's such a coincidence. Is she the fiancée you mentioned? Kyle's fiancée, Lily, with her stunning beauty and short haircut, gave me a disdainful look the moment our eyes met. It seemed she'd heard all sorts of rumors about me from Kyle. Oh, this is bad.
Aren't you a bit out of your league? That suit, that tie, looks pretty cheap. Do folks like you even understand the taste of a place like this?
Kyle started to mock me, just like he does at work.
Yeah, having some pooh schmuck like you here just brings down the place's reputation, doesn't it? Don't be a nuisance outside of work. Well, since we're here, let me pour you a drink.
Kyle took an open beer bottle and aggressively poured it over my head. My prize suit, a gift from my adoptive parents, was completely soaked. Watching it, Lily laughed. Oh my gosh, suits you.
Tastes good, doesn't it? The first drink after work. Oh, what a waste spilling it on the floor.
You're Robert, right? I've heard about you from Kyle. Sneaky moves to graduate college. Grew up in an orphanage. Obsessed with money? Poor people are so uncivilized. Disgusting. You probably find Kyle's drink better than the muddy water you've been used to, right? It's a shame to spill it on the floor. Go on, lick it up.
What's the matter? Not drinking. Never had a proper meal, so your taste buds can't recognize good liquor. If you don't get this, you're worse than a dog.
Kyle grabbed my beer-soaked head, trying to force me down onto the floor. Kyle, please stop. My parents will be here soon. If they see this, we won't be able to enjoy our meal. Kyle scoffed.
Still on about that. Seeing your parents while you're this drenched. I'd lose it if I were in your shoes. Always being corrected like this in front of others. Do you enjoy showing your incompetence?
If only I could have said, the crazy one here is you. How much were my adoptive parents looking forward to today? How devastated would they be to see their son in this state? The moment I ran into Kyle here, I knew this day was ruined. I fell to my knees just as they wished, weak and defeated. Kyle seemed like the devil. He said with an apparent glee,
Bottom feeders from foster homes, go home.
Then, the restaurant door opened.
You, what on earth are you doing?
Standing there was my adoptive father. My adoptive mother followed, looking at me in shock. This is it. Kyle suddenly put on a thick facade, as if his previous behavior was all a lie.
Jake. Are you and your wife here for dinner? How about joining us at our table?
Jake, what's he talking about? My foster dad spoke in a cold voice I had never heard in 20 years.
Kyle, I'll ask you once more. What exactly are you doing?
Without a doubt, he was furious. A side of him I'd never seen. Kyle replied, visibly puzzled.
Whatever do you mean? Oh, Robert. He's the lowest of the low in our company. He said he was here for dinner with his parents in a place like this. So, I was about to kick him out. Adoptive parents, I presume, figures they'd be just as pathetic. Taking in some random orphan, what a waste. Come on, Jake, join us before this loser's parents show up.
We are his parents.
Kyle and Lily looked utterly bewildered. My adoptive mother stepped forward.
How dare you make my son look like a drowned rat?
Kyle began to panic.
You must be joking. I was told you had no children.
Still trembling with quiet anger, my adoptive father replied,
That's right. We don't have any biological children, but we have a son right here, whom we've loved more deeply than any blood relation, Robert, who you just called trash. is a far better man than you could ever be.
Drenched in beer, I asked, "Dad, Mom, what's this about being a chairman?" Once they were found out, they reluctantly told me the truth. My adoptive mother was raised in a wealthy Christian home. One day, there was a fire that burned down their mansion, and she lost her parents. When she almost lost hope due to the coldness and shallowness of people, it was my adoptive father who comforted her. Eventually, using the inheritance she had left, my adoptive mother founded the medical equipment manufacturing company that Kyle and I now work for. Both of them hold the position of retired chairpersons. The company, founded with the simple principle of wanting to help those in need, generated enormous profits from that sentiment. They quietly operated children's shelters and supported a foundation that helped children like me get a college education. Yes, the foundation that sent me to college was run by my adoptive parents.
Robert, we weren't showing off for being arrogant with what we did. We're just like you. We simply want to help those in need. I was truly happy when you told us you wanted to work for our company with the same sentiment. And if I said I was the chairperson, you, with your sharp intuition, would have realized that the foundation was run by us. We wanted you to choose your own path, Robert. That's all there was to it.
My adoptive mother continued,
Kyle, I really underestimated you. After being with us for 10 years, how could you mock someone who grew up in an institution right in front of me, who also lost her parents? It's a direct insult to our founding principle.
It was clear that Kyle had no way out. However, Kyle tried to worm his way in with a fake smile. It was Kyle who was obsessed with power and money more than anyone. Having been raised surrounded by kind staff at the children's home, it was my first time seeing someone cling to their current status so desperately and shamelessly. My adoptive father finally delivered the blow to Kyle. He was cornered by my adoptive mother to the point of pity.
Think of it as you not having a seat from tomorrow.
Kyle was devastated. Later, my adoptive parents heard everything Kyle had done to me, and an internal audit was conducted in my department. Given the testimonies from other employees who were verbally abused by Kyle and the fact that he had splashed beer on me, grabbed my head, all of which had been witnessed by the chairman couple, Kyle was punished. He was dismissed from his position, had to pay compensation to multiple victims including me, and his engagement was broken off. Lily, who was there, exclaimed, "Wait, what you told me was completely different. You lied to me."
Well, I have no use for someone who's off the promotion track, she declared, breaking off the engagement on the spot and leaving the restaurant.
My adoptive father laughed heartily, saying, "What a decisive woman." As a follow-up, my adoptive mother made a suggestion to the current president, and I was promoted to headquarters. They transferred me to work of my former boss. Meeting my decent boss after such a long time, he consoled me saying, "It seems like you've been through a lot. I'm glad you stayed and didn't quit." I almost cried. And today is the day for revenge. I wore the same suit I had just sent to the cleaners that day. The best outfit gifted to me by my parents, saying it suited me well. We chatted while enjoying fresh vegetables, fluffy fish, and delicious meals. Even in a place I used to think was for grown-ups, I no longer felt nervous. My father spoke up.
Robert, thank you for growing up to be such a fine young man. You're my pride and joy, working hard for so many people.
My mother was teary-eyed.
You studied hard in college, graduated at the top of your class, and now you're working at our company with the same ideals we have. I'm so proud.
I turned to them and expressed my gratitude. Dad, Mom, thank you for raising me so well. You both are my pride and joy.
All right, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick! Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my 2nd year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, I'm thirsty. Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children. With zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job. Having joined the company wanting to do customer service. "I don't care what they say, I plan to quit anytime," he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. "To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance." As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. "All right, everyone's presentations are done." "Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something." Nick interrupted me. "There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer." He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. "Still here?" Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. "I'm leaving." I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. "Nick, what's wrong?" Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself, had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I obediently followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was. As the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize. Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. What kind of training are you giving your subordinates? Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed. I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1, if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry. Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong. Mike. What have you done? Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. I didn't do anything wrong. You're still saying that? Look at him. Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract? Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go. Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him. There's no way he was pushed aside. Don't make things worse here. He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he? I don't remember that part. I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you've failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.